In a real course, basically, it becomes more complicated. I'm going to show you really quickly. So if you're not interested in running web servers, you can definitely skip past this point. But I'm going to remote into my actual machine that's running my web server. And I have an Apache installation. So if I go to C, I'm using something called XAMPP, which includes the Apache web server and PHP and some other things. There's a mail server and Tomcat and so on. And inside the XAMPP folder, there's an Apache distribution, which is one of the more popular web servers. And then for Apache, there's a config folder, and key information goes into these folders here: ssl.cert, ssl.key, and ssl.pem. And then I have various cert files for various domains that I currently or previously had. I let most of them expire when I stopped doing this professionally. And then you have a key file for each of the domains and a PEM file, which is private, and so you really don't usually put these here. This one is a default thing that comes bundled with Apache. And then the actual configuration is going to be inside of this extra folder. There's httpd ssl.conf. I think it's actually the vhosts, but here is what configuration looks like. So you're basically defining, here we go, look at this. So you're defining a virtual host called default that's running on port 443, and then you can assign it a server name, so this will match the domain name wolfgoatcabbage.club on port 443, and any traffic that connects to my specific IP address on this port. And then as part of the hypertext transfer protocol, if the URL included wolfgoatcabbage.club, it knows to route that to a particular path on my machine. And then here's where I specify I'm going to use an SSL connection, and then here's the path to the cert file, here's the path to the key file, and then you don't need to specify a path to the PEM file. You just need that later on if you want to regenerate the certificate. And then what I have for Apache, I think that's in this one. So I'm sorry, what I have for my my XAMPP, yeah. So what I have, for example, I have a Flask app running under the schedule path, which is actually running my Flask app under PyCharm project schedule. There's a file called web service gateway interface, web server gateway interface.py, that basically returns a Flask app. And then I pass that to Apache using WSGI script alias. So the route evals or the path schedule go to these two different applications. And then here we go, in my httpd.conf, I enable the actually proxy module is for running node applications. What I want is WSGI. So in order to enable plugging Flask apps under Apache, I basically load a DLL for the version of Python that I'm using, and then load the WSGI module into Apache. And then I generated a couple of magic files. There's a package for generating these files. If you're interested in knowing more, I can show you. But basically, I end up with a link between the Python that I use to run my Flask apps and then the settings I use for the virtual server that lets me actually map the Flask app to the Apache web server. So the bottom line here, if I go ahead and close that, the bottom line is if I go here and I do glassgirder.com/schedule, you'll notice that I am running a secure connection. And if I look at the certificate, this is what a real professional certificate looks like. And so the certifying authority for this is Let's Encrypt. And they basically will give you a free certificate for 3 months at a time. And there's a little bot that you can run to auto renew it and so on. So the actual Flask app itself, though, looks very similar to this, but it plugs into an Apache web server, and then it's the Apache web server that that uses the security certificate for the HTTPS protocol, not the Flask app. So the WSGI web server handles the security part in the certificate. The Flask app is just running under the web server.